And make sure to click got it or it'll kick you off.
And I just had a.
All right. Now on. I know a couple people said they couldn't make it tonight, but they'll check out the recording. This Thanksgiving week sometimes is a little tough. It's not too bad on Zoom, but I'm thinking maybe when we're back in person, we might want to shift to November to the 3rd Tuesday. That way it's a week early.
Hey, then I got to reprogram all of the periodic announcements on the repeater.
Yeah, that's
Thanks a
become
lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, the repeater doesn't doesn't understand holidays.
No, well, it's got a scheduler and it does the 4th Tuesday. It's been that way for a while.
So how does it keep track of the date? It just has an internal clock.
Yeah, it's a battery backup clock calendar system. Even
Okay,
though
so if there's a power burp, it knows.
the SCOM 7330 controller came out about 14, 15 years ago, and it's a real winner if you want to spend that much. It's now pushing like $550 or so, but it's worth every penny.
Mm.
We'll say hello to Ed, KB3IV. Hello, Ed. Although you have no video, we'll just say hello.
And he's muted too, so.
Yeah, I know. Good morning. Good evening, KB3IV. Dr. Dennis, I presume.
Yes, I'm here.
Well, let me make myself presentable before I turn the video on.
Biting my tongue.
All right. Well, this is working. My new monitor is wonderful. I'll take off my blue readers.
Probably give another minute to 2 minutes, and then we will get started with the business meeting. So hopefully everybody's doing pretty well, getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Cold out.
Yeah, it's finally fall, right? Or getting a little beyond fall.
Too many leaves on the ground also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello.
usually gone by now.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, Jeremy. We're crazy. We just got in from cat. What did we do? We cat sat for an hour and a half to visit my son's cat while they're away. And then we went out for a bite of dinner and we rushed home because Ron wanted to be on this meeting tonight. Nice to see you all. You all staying local for the holidays?
Yeah, I'll be in New York City, so not too far.
We were planning on going down to the parade until we saw what happened out in Midwest on Sunday. So we're still rethinking that, but I think we'll use our senior passes and get on the SEPTA and go down for a couple hours.
Yeah, we're doing a smaller Thanksgiving this year. It'll just be 5 of us, so just a smaller family group. Historically, we've got about 40 people, but that's a little too big for this year.
Wow. Our kids both abandoned us. So it's just the 2 of us this year.
All right, should we get the show started? Let me turn on the recording. All right, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the MARC November 2021 meeting on this Thanksgiving week. So hopefully everybody's getting ready for Thanksgiving, maybe done with work for the week if you're out there working. I know I did my last class for the week earlier, and looking forward to a couple of days to relax. So I'm Jeremy, N2ZLQ. I'm the MARC Club President. So as we normally do, we will go around with introductions. So let's see, maybe we'll start with call signs ending in Alpha through Echo. You can check in now.
Use the drop-in feature. Just say dropping in.
Somebody, I think I triggered an Amazon device somewhere.
So
Yeah, that was mine. I'm not sure what it was trying to tell me, but
All right. Order a bunch of stuff.
well, it's all that's what it always says. But yeah,
All right. Do we have any Alpha through Echo? All right. Foxtrot through Lima.
Alan, AB3FN. Hey, everybody.
This is Ron, KC3ACL.
Karen, KC3ACM.
Lou WX3I.
Ed, KB3IV.
Jeff, KC3GJX.
How about Mike through Sierra?
Dennis, K3DS.
David, Whiskey 5, Quebec Sierra.
Rich, K2RSJ.
Jim, W3JNF.
Dave, WB3EHS.
All right. And free for all, anyone who hasn't checked in.
Ron, NY3J.
Abraham, KC3QPB.
Art, W3EIA. I missed the first call there. Sorry.
All right. Sounds pretty good. So I want to extend a special welcome to those joining us from some of our neighboring clubs. I think we have some folks from Holmesburg, probably Marple Newtown, maybe Philmont, and a couple other clubs as well. So welcome. Hopefully you'll find some interest in MARC's programs, and maybe we'll see you at future meetings. All right, I just wanted to start with a little announcement. As many of you heard several months ago, the Gloucester County Club, they lost a lot of their club antennas in the big storm that went through. So MARC has donated a tri-band Yagi antenna for 10, 15, and 20 meters, which the Gloucester County Club picked up earlier this week. So hopefully they'll be able to put that to good use at their club station. That was the antenna we had been using at field day, but honestly, it's just too big and too heavy for us to set up for one weekend. I think none of us are getting any younger, so I cringe a little bit more seeing people on top of that building every year. So we're glad that it'll be going to a good home, and hopefully they'll make some really nice contacts with that. Great. So treasurer's report. Lou.
okay, we have $16,779.73 in the bank. Recent bills that were paid, well, basically today, $200, we renewed our insurance policy for another year. And a couple of payments for repeater expenses to Dennis, $810 and $1,300. And then also to you, Jeremy, to renew the Zoom sessions. And that's it. We have 90 members on the books right now.
All right. Thanks, Lou. Glad we've got money. Things are humming right along, and membership is starting to rebound a little bit. We lost a few during COVID, so we're gradually on the way up. So on the topic of repeaters and also the holiday party, technical service, Dennis.
Okay, repeaters first. Well, all repeaters are operational, at least those that are on the air. I'm bench testing right now a new Bridgecom repeater. It's my first experience with that. So far, my impressions are good. There's both positive and negatives on reviews on the internet, but then again, that's the internet. Nothing like doing it yourself. That repeater, which we spent $1,300 for, will eventually be on 147.36. It'll replace the DR1X that's there now. DR1X will be promoted up to UHF. And we may think about getting a 220 repeater there, which once was housed there. We'll have to see if we want to spend the money on a sort of an orphan band, the 220 band that is. All other NSQ and Paoli repeaters are working fine, still linked together. The orphan repeater at Bryn Mawr comes to life on occasion. It's sort of like some of the early Oscar satellites. They come to life and every so often. And the Bryn Mawr 220 repeater is in that same boat. I think we've covered all the repeaters. As far as the holiday party is concerned, we've had, if you can go to the marc-radio.org website, you'll see the glorious pictures of our holiday party in the past with 25, 35 people or so. We have a big back room with a roaring fireplace and full screen TVs for football games and all that. Here's the problem. Uno's, of course, wants to make money by renting out that back room, and they really would like to see us have at least about 25 or more participants. Right now we have 8. So they're giving me till Wednesday next to come up with commitment, and a commitment I believe will probably have a penalty if we can't meet the commitment. And I'm not going to put the club out for anything like that at all. We'll do that by sending out another email, and hopefully we can get 16, 18 more people or so to commit. So we'll have to see how that goes. It was some question about whether or not to have it. And this response may be part of that overall ambiance, but I'll put out another circulating email right after Thanksgiving, and you'll have the list of those who have already committed to come. And if you don't come, I'll be after you. But so you don't have to re-up, but try to get some more people going. That's the situation with the holiday party. Now, in case you don't know, if it's your first holiday party, Mark actually takes our winnings from our Hamfest and what have you, and actually subsidizes your holiday party. So you'll get a $10 subsidy of your $20 membership fee. What a deal, right? To come to the holiday party, and you'll be responsible for the remainder. So if it is going to run, we'll certainly let you know at all points in time, including with emails. Back to the club meeting.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Dennis is one of the people who keeps things running in our club behind the scenes. So the repeaters is Dennis, the website is Dennis. A lot of the email work is done by Dennis as well, and he also organizes the holiday party. So we're not sure if that'll be able to take off because of the attendance requirement that they are imposing, but we'll see what happens over the next week or so. All right, next on my list is public service. I don't see Bob here, but I can give a quick summary. So our public service season for the fall has ended. I think the clipboards are on their way down to the Bahamas for the winter. So we had 5 scheduled public service events. Unfortunately, the first 2 ended up getting canceled. So we had 3 regular events. We had the Soul Harvest 5K, we had the Radnor 5-mile run, and we had the Vietnam Veterans 5K in the Norristown Farm Park. So I think all 3 events went pretty well. We had, I think, pretty good staffing for all of them. So thank you to all who helped out with that. I think it's good that we provide a presence there. Sometimes just helping people find the course because they're not always laid out the best. So coordinating who's supposed to go where. So I think that's a good thing. And in the spring, I think we're planning to have a full suite of public service events as well. So hopefully we'll hear from Bob regarding that. As far as events for 2022, the biggies would be Field Day and the Hamfest. I don't think much has happened yet at this point. So Jim, anything on Field Day? Or
Right now, nothing on Field Day. I mean, we're set to go. I mean, it's a bit early to start thinking about Field Day, but we're all set up. We have plenty of radios, plenty of antennas, even though we gave away one, which I'm glad we did. But no, ready to go.
Okay. As far as the Hamfest, no real updates yet. Normally, this is when we would start planning, but I think we're waiting on the Kimberton Fire Department. They're making some changes around their facilities. So we're waiting to hear back from them probably around January or so. So hopefully we'll have an update not too long after the new year about the Ham Fest, whether we'll be doing it at the same time or different time, or hopefully we'll be able to continue the same location and all of that.
Jeremy, can I jump in here?
Yeah.
I did want to mention, because I think I've forgotten to tell everybody, we did get our security deposit back from them. And included in that was a note from them saying, thank you for hooking up our outside speakers, because I guess they we helped them out with that. So hopefully that goes towards future goodwill with them. So
did we send them a bill for our labor? Because we had an electrician, we had a couple of licensed electrical engineers working there. All right.
If you want to,
All right. Jim, did you want to talk about elections or anything about membership?
Membership, Lou mentioned, is 90. I'd like to get it up to 100, but we're getting towards the end of the year here. So hopefully we'll get a few more before the end of the year. As far as the elections go, we're working on the ballots right now. There are a few open positions, so I sent out email to some of you. If anybody else is interested in a position on the board, we have member at large, public relations, a couple other positions. If you're interested, it's only an hour a week, so you should have plenty of time. The ballots will probably be going out within the next 2 weeks, and we'll announce the results right after the next board meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Yes, again, any member is eligible to run for any position that you'd like to run for. But in particular, right now, we're looking for public relations and member at large. Those are the two open positions. Public relations is a 1-year term. Member at large would be a 2-year term that would run through 2022 and 2023. I believe that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's election. So you should be hearing from Jim shortly about that. If you have any questions, you can contact Jim. What's the best way to reach you?
Well, you can either email me or just call me on the phone. I'll be happy to give my number if anybody's interested. It's 610-715-0331. And it's on the weekly announcement every week. You can use the email that I announce the nets each week. So, but feel free to call. I prefer phone calls.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, very quick update on the nets. They're going pretty well. We're typically getting, a dozen or so check-ins on a typical net. We've been doing Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, and they seem to be going strong. So we will continue with that. I think the nets have really been revitalized during COVID. People were looking for things to do. And I think ham radio is the original social distancing before it was cool. So I think a lot of people have rediscovered ham radio, especially in the first couple of months. So as far as plans for 2022, we will be having a board meeting in December. So we're going to be discussing possibilities of resuming potentially in-person meetings. The issue right now is the room at Paoli Hospital is unavailable. There are actually a number of restrictions on it, so we haven't been able to use that. I'm hoping that will start to ease up in the new year. So maybe starting sometime after January, we'll resume in-person monthly meetings. But of course, if we can't, we'll continue to run meetings on Zoom for as long as necessary. We're also thinking about the breakfasts. Would there be interest in bringing back the breakfasts?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't really cost us anything to do that. We can always say, meet there if you want. And if we don't get much turnout, well, maybe we'll hold it off for a little bit. Yeah, so maybe we'll think about resuming those. So that would be an idea. And I think other than that, we are resuming normal activities. Nets have been going full strength. We'll have Field Day, Ham Fest next year. Hopefully we'll do a club event for the PA-QSO party. That was a little disappointing. We couldn't get that to work this year just because of some limits on access to sites. But I think maybe next year we'll try for the Lower Providence Fire Department, because we know that we can stay there at night. We know there's electrical power. We know there's a pavilion in case it rains. And it's a pretty good site to operate from. We were hoping to get Delaware County because that's one of the more in-demand counties in the PAQSO party, but we got to roll with what we got. All right, so at this point, does anyone have anything for the club? Any club business?
I do, Jeremy.
Sure, go ahead, Lou.
Yeah. If anyone is interested, Skywarn Recognition Day, which has been happening for more years than I can remember, is happening again this year. It is similar to last year for the most part. Nobody is operating from the Weather Service offices unless they have licensed hams on staff, then they will be, but otherwise not, because they're not letting people visit. So, but it's an online event, and I honestly have not really researched exactly what they're doing. I was expecting an email to give me more details, but I haven't heard anything. But I'll put it in the chat session if everybody knows how to access that, which I just did. That's the URL for the event, if anyone wants to check into it and see if they can check in. It's December 3rd from 7 p.m. Eastern to December 4th from 7 p.m. Eastern. So, but yeah, if you're interested, and there might, in fact, there probably are going to be some people doing, operations. It's just that it won't be from the Weather Service offices like it usually is. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anything else for club business before we go to the main presentation? All right. I want to welcome a couple of folks who've joined us on YouTube and a couple of folks who have just recently joined the meeting. So now we'll move to the main presentation. I've been looking forward to this for a while. By the magic of Zoom, we have a speaker who could not otherwise join us, being in another state. So I'm pleased to welcome Carl Letzelschwab, K9LA. Carl was an RF design engineer for Motorola and Raytheon for over 40 years. He's now retired, and he's currently serving as the ARRL Central Division Director, located out in Indiana. He's been licensed since 1961 and has been very interested in Hf propagation, and actually radio propagation in general, and solar forecasting since the 1960s. He has a website, k9la.us. He's got a whole bunch of information about propagation, solar forecasting, antennas, and a variety of other topics. So I suggest that you check that out. It's k9limaAlpha.us. So he's given a number of presentations to clubs throughout the country. He's written articles for a number of magazines. And tonight, Carl is here to share a presentation. Get ready for worldwide propagation on 15 meters, 12 meters, and 10 meters. So please join me in welcoming Carl.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. Well, yeah, I've been to Philadelphia twice to give presentations to the Frankfurt Radio Club, but that was because American ran a nonstop from Fort Wayne to Philadelphia. I don't know if they do that anymore. I guess I should check, but whatever. So let me get my share screen here. There it is. Okay, share and go big screen. Hopefully. I think it's big screen, I think. Yeah, probably. Whoops, what happened? Oh, there we go. Ah, there we go. Now it's full screen for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do that. So, as the title suggests, we're going to talk about the good things that are coming up here as cycle 25 rises. It's kind of just waking up. If you have any questions later, k9la@arrl.net. There's my website. And Jeremy, I plan to send you a PDF of this presentation. You can do whatever you want with it too. So,
all right, thanks. Can we post it on the club website?
Sure.
All right.
So I usually include this slide just in case. As Jeremy said, I got my novice in October '61. I was WN9AVT. up in the northwest corner of Indiana. And I enjoy a bunch of things in ham radio, solar and propagation and playing with antennas. We live on 2 acres in a rural area, so we have no restrictions. That's kind of nice. I like DXing. I like COD testing, although it's mostly casual nowadays. I really enjoy fixing and using vintage equipment. There's my novice station, a National NC60 and the Heathkit DX35 on the right. You can see below the NC60 was my popular electronics call, WPE9BQH. I still have the certificate for that. Graduated from Purdue, a double E, and spent my career doing RF designs, mostly solid state power RF power amplifiers. I started with Motorola in Schaumburg, transferred down to Fort Worth, Texas with Motorola. Then in 1988, we decided to move back north, ended up in Fort Wayne with Magnavox, which has gone through a whole bunch of name changes. It's now Raytheon. Excuse me. My wife is Vicky, AE9YL. She was licensed when we lived in Texas. That really helps to have your wife be in a ham. So she's a school teacher at the moment. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to do a quick look at the cycle 25 update, the importance of solar cycles. Why are they important? Some HF propagation fundamentals. Taking all that space weather data and trying to make sense of it. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And then some antennas for the higher HF bands, because even if cycle 25 is going to be small, you'll still have worldwide propagation opportunities around solar maximum on 15, 12, and 10, and you're going to have lots of fun. Cycle 25 update. Well, since we're in cycle 25, that kind of suggests that we've had 24 before. Indeed, cycle 21 started in 1755. The Maunder Minimum, you've probably heard of that. That was when there were few sunspots on the sun. That was before cycle 1, from 1645 to 1715. And the plot shows the maximum smooth sunspot number of each solar cycle. And what's very obvious is it's cyclic in nature. Cycles 1, 2, 3, 4 were big cycles. Cycles 5, 6, 7 were small cycles. Cycle 8, 9, 10, 11 were big cycles, and then some more small cycles, then some big cycles. And cycle 24 is a small cycle. It's the smallest in our lifetimes. It's the 4th smallest in recorded history. So will cycle 25 get us out of this 3rd period of small solar cycles, or will it keep us in it? We'll take a look at that. Here's a prediction from the Solar Cycle 25 prediction panel. It's part of NOAA, NASA. On the left is cycle 24, what it did. The black data is monthly mean, monthly average solar flux, 10.7 centimeter solar flux. Still kind of spiky data, so you further average it, and that gives you that purple line, which is a smooth line. And you can see that cycle 24 had 2 peaks. Why did it have 2 peaks? It's because the 2 solar hemispheres weren't working together. One hemisphere, solar hemisphere, was active, the other was kind of quiet, then it switched. So that gave us 2 peaks. You can see where we are towards almost into 2022. And the red is their prediction for cycle 25, which they say it's going to be a small one. It's about the same as cycle 24. Those green lines, horizontal lines, are what the 10.7 centimeter solar flux need to be for many weeks for the bottom line is 15 meters being open. The top line, the top green line with the arrows is The solar, the 10.7 centimeter solar flux needs to be 125 for many weeks, and then we'll have daily openings on 10 meters. So we've got a way to go. I'm aware of 56 predictions. 50 of them are for a cycle 25 similar to or smaller than 24. That's 89%. So that's a pretty good consensus amongst solar scientists. There are 4 predictions for an average cycle, a little bit bigger. And there are 2 predictions for a big cycle. So how is cycle 25 doing? Well, what I've plotted is the smooth sunspot number for cycle 24 in green. Remember, cycle 24 was a small cycle. Orange is the smooth sunspot number for cycle 23, which was an average cycle. And then blue is the smooth sunspot number for cycle 21, which was a moderately big solar cycle. Cycle 21 peaked in 1979. Now, the red is what cycle 25 has done so far. It's starting its ascent. We have 17 months of data. It's kind of slow right now. So the question is, will it continue to follow the small cycle 24, the green plot, or will it maybe accelerate and maybe get up to the average cycle, which is orange? Or even will it get up to the big cycle, the blue curve? I think maybe 6 to 12 more months of data may give us a better clue as to where it's headed. It's just too early to really pin it down. So what we can do is sit and wait. Okay, the importance of solar cycles. Solar cycles are also known as sunspot cycles because that's what we see, sunspots. It's the time from a very low number of sunspots on the sun, that's A in the little sketch on the right, through a maximum number of sunspots, that's solar maximum, that's at B, and then back down to a very low number of sunspots, that's C. A to B to C in the plot is an approximate 11-year cycle. Some cycles are a little bit shorter, some are a little bit longer. And on average, the rise time of a solar cycle is about 4 years. And that says the descent time on average is about 7 years. Now, one thing that's kind of troublesome is, there are a lot of predictions out there that people make, but it takes a while to validate the predictions. For example, if you make a prediction for a solar cycle at point A at solar minimum, it could take 4 years to validate your prediction. So solar cycles are long, and hopefully we're learning a little bit more each time. And one of these days we'll maybe be able to predict solar cycles much better than what we do now. So why are solar cycles important? Well, they're important for the higher bands, 15, 12, and 10, because the area around sunspots emits extreme ultraviolet radiation, and that ionizes the F2 region. And of course, the F2 region is responsible for most of our long distance contacts on HF. So when there are more sunspots, there's more EUV coming from the sun. There's more ionization in the ionosphere. There's a higher MUF between 2 points, and that results in the best propagation on the higher bands, and that generally occurs around solar maximum. Solar cycles are important on 160 meters in the lower bands too, 80, 60, and 40, in addition to 160. When we have few sunspots, 2 things happen. There's less ionospheric absorption. In other words, the signal does not get reduced as much in strength at solar minimum. And also there are less disturbances to propagation from the sun around solar minimum. So solar minimum is the best propagation on the lower bands. Doesn't say you can't work stuff at solar max on 160 and 80, but you'll find that those bands are generally best at solar minimum, which is indicated around A and around C. And I should point out that 30, 20, and 17 meters are generally good throughout a solar cycle. So if you can only put up one antenna, put up a 20-meter dipole or something, you'll be able to use it throughout an entire solar cycle, because even at solar minimum, there's still enough ionization in the F2 region to refract 14 megahertz back to Earth in the daytime and early evening. Some fundamentals of HF propagation. It all starts with solar radiation. And that graph is a plot of the radiation emitted by the sun. It emits it at many wavelengths. Way on the left is very short wavelengths, extremely high frequencies. On the right is very long wavelengths, very low frequencies. Now, what's most important is, well, one thing is the sun emits its most radiation in visible light wavelengths. It kind of makes sense because that's what our eyes are adjusted to. And the important range of radiation for our amateur radio HF indexers is very short wavelengths. If you follow that green line from the right all the way over to the left, and that little short area, that's what makes our ionosphere. That's extreme ultraviolet and also X-rays. Now you can see where 10.7 centimeter solar flux is way over here. So 10.7 centimeter solar flux has nothing to do with ionization, but it can be a good proxy for extreme ultraviolet, just like sunspots can be a good proxy for the extreme ultraviolet. Here's a picture of the ionosphere. On the left is at night, on the right is during the day. Notice I call them regions, not layers. Layers kind of indicate that there's a layer and then there's nothing in between until the next layer, and that's not right. There's a continual electron density. We'll look at that on the next slide. But during the day, there's the D region down there. There's the E region a little bit above it, and then the F region splits into F1 and F2. When the sun goes down, we still have the F region. It's reduced quite a bit, but it's still there to give us propagation on 40 meters and 30 meters, and or 40 meters and well, yeah, 40 meters and 60 meters and 80 and 160. The E layer decreases significantly, but there's still some there, and it can still affect 160 meters, 630 meters, and 2200 meters are VLF bands. As I said, extreme ultraviolet gives us the F2 region. X-rays result in the E region, and even shorter X-rays and the Lyman alpha spectral line of hydrogen result in the D region. Oh, here comes Kitty. Don't step on the keyboard. Okay. So why should we call them regions? Well, like I said, there's a continuous electron density from down low up way high, and that's a sketch of it. You can see on the right are the daytime solar max and solar min. On the left are nighttime solar min and solar max, and you can see there's no layer really. It's just a continual electron density from way up there to way down there. So general characteristics of the regions. The F region is roughly 150 to 400 kilometers. Splits into F1 and F2 during the daytime. The F region is the highest in altitude, and that gives us the longest hops. If you just look at spherical geometry, Earth and the ionosphere, you can see that pretty clearly. The F2 region also has the highest electron densities. So that's why the F2 region is most important for our long distance QSOs. It has the highest electron densities, and it gives us the longest hops. The E region is roughly 90 to 150 kilometers, peaks around 105 kilometers. Because it's lower, it gives shorter hops. And during the summer, when the sun's overhead, there could be so much E region ionization, it blocks signals from getting to the F region. So you can't take really long hops. You just got to put up with shorter and more hops. Of course, there's sporadic E in the summer, really helps on 10 and 6 meters. We had a great sporadic E season this summer on 6 meters. And the D region, roughly 60 to 90 kilometers. And all it is a detriment to propagation due to absorption, at least on HF. If you go down to 630 meters, it starts to help a little bit. If you get down to 2200 meters, 475 kilohertz, then the RF will kind of refract in the waveguide made up of the Earth's surface and the lower D region. And there's very little absorption because it didn't get into the D region too much. But that's another thing for some other time. So how do we measure the ionosphere? Well, ionosondes measure it. All they are is radars looking straight up. And what they do is they measure the maximum electron densities in the E region, the F1 and the F2 regions. And these are converted to a critical frequency for each region. And then if you go play around with spherical geometry, that converts these vertically incident frequencies to oblique MUFs. For example, if a signal's sent straight up and it comes back down at 4 megahertz, if you send a signal out at lower elevation angle, it'll come back and the frequency can be higher. So there on the left there, there's an example of when the operating frequency is greater than the MUF of the ionosphere. And on the right, there's an example of the operating frequency less than the MUF. And it's refracted and comes back to Earth. Okay, space weather and propagation. Just caution, we're going to make some very simple statements about some very complicated processes. Parameters to monitor. Well, I like to use the N0 NBH banner. That's the image on the right there. You can find it at QSL or at QRZ.com and a whole bunch of other places. And what I've put in gold boxes are the important parameters. There are two major bullets. The major bullet on top are the parameters that tell us which bands may be open. In other words, the MUF may be high enough. So SFI is the 10.7 centimeter solar flux. It varies from 65 at solar min to over 245 at solar max. And I downloaded that image at 2219. 5, that was 5/19 this afternoon. The solar flux was 79. So what does that tell us? Well, 79 is a heck of a lot closer to 65 than it is to 245. So it says we're still kind of near solar minimum. Okay, how about SN, the sunspot number? That varies from 0 at solar minimum. We had lots of 0 sunspot days during the last solar minimum between 24 and 25. And it can vary to over 286. So what was the sunspot number today? It was 22. Well, 22 is a heck of a lot closer to 0 than it is to 286. So the solar flux and the sunspot number kind of agree that, hey, we're kind of near solar minimum. Now, at the bottom in a gold box, there's MUF US boulder. And what that is the maximum usable frequency for a 3,000 kilometer path if Boulder was the midpoint. And what that works out to be is pretty much the Midwest to California. So at 519 today, the MUF was 22.7 megahertz. So that says 15 meters should have been open between the Midwest and California, or any other 3,000 kilometer path over the US, as a rough general idea. Okay, now, you got to remember the MUF US Boulder tells us what's really happening in real time. So that's a good one to look at. And like I said, it gives us a good indication of how propagation is in the continental US. Now, the parameters in the second bullet, they tell us that the F2 region of the ionosphere may be adversely impacted. So even though solar flux and sunspot number may be very high, there could be a disturbance to propagation that's screwing the ionosphere up. It'll show up in the MUF US Boulder, and it'll show up in the parameters that I've listed. There's the K index. It's a 3-hour measurement of the activity of the Earth's magnetic field. It varies from 0, extremely quiet, to 9, very disturbed. The K index was 2, so it's closer to 0 than it is to 9, so it was kind of quiet. The Earth's magnetic field was quiet, which says the ionosphere probably wasn't screwed up too much at all. Now, the next one is B sub Z. That's the Z component of the interplanetary magnetic field. It varies from about plus 50 to minus 100. Now, the Z component is perpendicular to the ecliptic, which means, the ecliptic is the plane in which the Earth goes around the sun. So if something is perpendicular to the ecliptic, that means it's kind of oriented along the same lines as the Earth's magnetic field. So when the BZ is positive, that means the sun's magnetic field, the interplanetary magnetic field, is not coupling to the Earth's magnetic field very well. But when it's large negative, it is, and that can bring all kinds of junk into our atmosphere. The solar wind speed, SW, varies from about 300 to 2,000 kilometers per second. On average, it's about 400. 2,000 kilometers is when there's a big coronal mass ejection headed towards us, or a coronal hole. And here's kind of a what we generally desire for the solar flux and sunspot number. And that'll give us an indication what bands may be open. If we have a solar flux around 65 and sunspot number around 0, well, we're at solar min. And like I said, there's still enough extreme ultraviolet to keep the F2 region ionized during the day and early evening. So we will have 20 meters and 17 degree. And as the solar flux and the sunspot number get higher, well, the MUF can go up. And I just tied them to typical sunspot cycles. We'd like a high value of MUF US Boulder. That tells us exactly what's going on. We'd like a K index less than or equal to 3. We'd like the BZ to be positive or just very slightly negative. And we'd like the solar wind not to be too much greater than 400. Now, if you don't want to bother with all those numbers, what you can do is go to dxmaps.com. And that's what that picture is. I selected a world view. I selected 15 meters, and this is today at 22:13 to 23 UTC, which 5:15 to 6 o'clock. And it looks like North America is working South America, Pacific, Japan, and everything. So that's a real-time picture of who's working who, and That'll tell you, and you can click on either of those bands and see what's going on. Now, there are other methods, PSK reporter, WhisperNet. There's the reversed beacon network, in which you transmit in a specific format, and then you can go see where your signal was heard on worldwide software-defined radios. Pretty neat. You can also do some antenna A-B comparison. Kind of interesting. Then there's the IARUNC DXF, Northern Cal DX Foundation beacons on 2017, 15, 12, and 10. There are 18 of them worldwide. They each transmit for 10 seconds. So 18 beacons, each 10 seconds. That's 180 seconds, which is 3 minutes. So in a 3-minute period, you can tell what worldwide propagation is on a given band. So that's pretty interesting too. And there's some software to help you decode all that stuff too. So what are the bands doing right now? Well, they're showing signs of life because cycle 25 is rising, kind of slow, but it's getting there. We moved into fall and winter in the Northern Hemisphere. That's when the fall and winter in the Northern Hemisphere results in the highest daytime MUFs, and that's why Seeker Worldwide contests are in the fall. Okay. And de-expedition activity is finally picking up. There was S90K, J5T, 3DA0, RU, 7P8 RU. They kept the bands lively, even 15, 12, and 10. And hopefully 15 and 10 will be real good this weekend during Secure Worldwide DXCW. The digital modes offer more opportunities because they can detect signals farther down into the noise. So take advantage of that. If you don't hear too much stuff on 15 and 10, get on the digital mode and have some fun. Low bands are good at night around solar min, and like I said before, generally 30, 20, 17 are good throughout a solar cycle. Okay, antennas for the higher bands. Okay, what about 15 meters? Well, if you got a 40-meter dipole or inverted V, you're in luck. It works as a 3 half-wave antenna, has a bit of gain. Now there's a plot of my 40-meter inverted V. Its apex is 45 feet. You can see I centered it in the middle of the band. Pretty good SWR. And the bottom plot is what the SWR looks like on 15 meters. You can see it's kind of high. It starts at about 2.3 or so, and it's kind of coming down. And it will resonate. In other words, the SWR will be 1 at somewhere above the 15-meter band. So you may need to use your tuner, either your rig's internal tuner or an external tuner. Wow. Okay, I've also used a vertical with 4 elevated radials. My Hustler 4 BTV, it gave good results on 15, 12, and 15, 12, and 10. Well, 15 and 10, it didn't have 12. That's right. And you can put up a dedicated 15-meter dipole or inverted V. Its overall length's about 22 feet. And if you put it up at 20 feet, you're going to have lots of fun. You might even have room for a 2-element Yagi. The elements are, again, the two elements will be 22 feet long, and the boom would be about 6 feet. So it's getting kind of small. About 12 meters. Well, a dedicated inverted V or an aluminum dipole is a really good starter. It's about 18.5 feet tip to tip. 2-element Yagis are a little bit smaller than the 15-meter Yagi, so you may be able to put that up. And even a 3-element Yagi, it's got more gain, better front to back. You'll need a rotator for the 2-element or the 3-element Yagi, but they can do wonders. They'll do wonders when cycle 25 really gets going. And 10 meters. The dipole made of aluminum is relatively small. It's about 16.5 feet tip to tip. It'll give great results at 15 to 20 feet high. And it's not too obtrusive either. Multi-element Yagis are quite reasonable on 10 meters. I have a 4-element Cushcraft 10-meter Yagi. Its boom is 16 feet. Elements are about 17 feet tip to tip. And I used it to work many stations with my little homebrew QRP 10-meter double sideband transceiver during the big cycle 22, which peaked in 89. And there's a picture of there's an azimuth pattern of the 10-meter antenna. You're looking down on the antenna. You can see the front lobe is very good. And of course, there's not much radiation off the sides. And it has some radiation off the back, but that's okay. It's still a great antenna. Okay, here's some references to start with. If you want to learn about propagation, the propagation chapters of the ARRL antenna book and the ARRL handbook are very handy. Lots of good information. Bob Brown, NM7M, who's a silent key, wrote a book, The Little Pistol's Guide to HF Propagation. It's very readable. It's not heavy in math or anything. It's out of print, but it's available on my website for free. It's about 15 meg file, which probably shouldn't be too much of a problem nowadays. Also, there's the new CQ shortwave propagation handbook. The 4th edition was just recently updated and early in 2021, so it's got lots of good information. If you want to learn about antennas, well, the ARRL antenna work is antenna book's a good place to start. And if you're interested in low bands, low band DXing by John ON4UN, who's a silent key, I should put that after his call. And solar info, there's a lot of it on the internet. I talked about the N0 NBH banner at qrz.com. There's spaceweather.com. It has lots of good data and has lots of good text describing all kinds of stuff. Space Weather Prediction Center from NOAA. They have a lot more technical data. VE3EN has solarham.net. And of course, Dr. Tamitha Scove, Whiskey X-Ray 6, SWW, Space Weather Woman, has regular videos. And she talks about what the sun's doing and how that impacts propagation. So take a view her videos. They're really good. So here's a summary. Cycle 25 is beginning its ascent. Most are forecasting a below average cycle 25. A few are forecasting a big cycle. Even if cycle 25 is small, we'll still have some great worldwide propagation opportunities around solar maximum with modest antennas and 100 watts. And all we can do is wait to see what happens. Don't forget sporadic E on 6 meters during the summer and in December. Sporadic E does not appear to depend on where we are in the solar cycle. It happens year after year. Some years are a little bit better than others, but it still happens. And antennas are of a reasonable size on 15, 12, and 10. And of course, use the digital modes for their advantage over sideband and CW. So my last statement is get radioactive on HF. It's lots of fun, I'm sure, as you guys know. That's all I had, Jeremy.
All right, thanks, Carl. It was a great presentation. Any questions? Feel free to call them out. Or you could put them in the chat if you prefer.
I'll have to close my share here. Oh, no, I don't.
Another propagation mode I actually was quite involved in, that tropospheric scatter. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah, it happens. Hold on. Let me get back to nope. Okay. No. I think so. If I had that slide in here. Yeah, maybe not. Okay. Well, I did. Sometimes I have a slide that shows all kinds of propagation modes on the HF bands. Yeah, ionospheric scatter. Scatter, of course, implies signal loss. So you'll have to be able to hear good. And generally, scatter is up on the VHF type stuff. I'm sure I've heard 10-meter scatter during the 10-meter contest at solar minimum. It's an interesting band to be on at solar minimum when there's lots of people there. Little pings come and go and all kinds of interesting stuff. And every once in a while, you're lucky enough to get a full call.
Thanks. Other questions?
Carl, will these slides be on your website?
No, I'm going to send them to Jeremy.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
We'll get them on the MARC website.
Yep.
Do you have any sense for long-term forecasting? What solar physicists are thinking? Are we headed towards like another Maunder minimum, or is this going to start coming back up again? If not, maybe this cycle, maybe 26.
I've seen papers going both ways.
Yeah, that's the impression I get too.
So
reading leaves.
I don't know what to say. If 25 turns out to be small, that may suggest that 26 is going to be small too, but who knows?
But how long were those previous minima? They seem like they were like 50 to 100 years. So we might be out of luck, at least those of us here.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see here. Oh, there we go. You can see those periods of small solar cycles. Well, there's 5, 6, and 7. So that's 3. So that was only maybe 33 years. But then cycles 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, that's 5. So that was about 55 years. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We some of us may not see us come out of this third minimum period, unfortunately.
So maybe not much hope for, I hear all these stories from the 50s and 60s where you could basically work the world with a piece of spaghetti.
Yeah, yep. That's not going to happen, at least in our lifetimes, probably. But the sun's not going to do what we expect it to do. It's going to do what it wants to do. So we have to wait and see.
Do you have an explanation at kind of a heuristic level for teaching why the D region is mostly responsible for absorption while the E and F tend to cause more refraction?
Yes, because the atmospheric constituents down at D region levels are moving all over the place.
Mm-hmm. So you're getting incoherent scattering then.
Well, yeah, we get, and what absorption is when an RF wave, it kind of starts an electron in motion, and down in the D region, that electron could bump into either a positive ion or a neutral, and it's going to lose some energy, and that's what causes absorption. It's just that, yeah, the D region is very mixed.
Yeah.
Whereas higher regions are kind of, it's all tied into the collision frequency, which is the collision frequency between an electron and a neutral constituent. And down in the D region, the collision frequencies are very high, which means there's stuff bouncing around down there. In the F region, there's not much.
So it's a function of density then. So the F region is more rarefied.
Yes.
Okay. Now that makes sense because usually everything I read just says the D absorbs and the E and F refract, and it doesn't, not really much of an explanation as to why they're different. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Thanks so much, Carl. It was a great presentation. Really enjoyed it. think I'm definitely going to review it again later.
Okay, I'll get it to you tomorrow morning.
Okay. And then the recording will be up on YouTube too. So that should be
Sounds good.
available as well.
Yep.
It's a nice
Alrighty.
presentation.
Check out of here then.
Thank you, Carl.
Bye-bye.
I think I saw Bob just joined us. I don't know if you had anything to present for the meeting. Did he drop off? Oh, there he is.
Jeremy, you want to stop the recording?
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. I will stop the recording. I think we will drop off of YouTube. So those of us joining over there, we will hopefully see you for our next meeting, which will be in